Here's a dead simple tip that's helped me so much home and abroad. When I'm on a water that I want to line up with the rod where I'm casting, especially at night, these little things, these are absolutely unbelievable, and they last a week. They're called bite light, and all you do is you just pull this bit of tape off them, right? And that's it. Look at that light. Now let me tell you something now. That's very subtle, but you can see it from a couple 100 yards away. So if you go over the other side and put that in a tree and just put it up there, you can line that up so that at night when you come out, you could put two in. So you can put the swim that you're fishing over the other side, you can actually line up. And I tell you what else they're very useful for is when you're abroad and you go out at night in a boat to bait up, sometimes it's that dark and it might be a little bit misty, but especially when it's dark, finding your way back to the swim, and you just put that either side the peg, lit up like that, and I tell you what, you wouldn't believe how you can see that, and you can row back to your swim in safety. But the main thing I'll use that for is shining that over the other side of the lake, so when I come out to bait up, all I've got to do is line that light up or line the two lights up, and I can get the two rods or the three rods in between, so I'm accurate. Because a lot of people are accurate in the day and then stop feeding at night, which is crazy, because the more you feed at night sometimes, instead of going to sleep, very often I will be sleeping through the day and then fishing hard through the night, especially on day ticket waters, hard fish waters, instead of just baiting up, going to bed, and then waking up the next morning and baiting up again. No, baiting up through the night is so important, whether it be spomming, whether it be ground baiting or whatever. But you need that light. Now, I know it seems a tiny little light, but believe me, that shines. You can see it so easily. And as I say, you could put them out there and you can see to line them up. And also, as I say, put them either side of your peg so that when you're rowing back, you can get back into your peg. Bite light, absolutely superb little bit of kit, cheap as chips, and they actually last a week. Can you believe that? A week. About 10 years ago, I started to drop shot for perch, and the chap who showed it me was a chap called Ed Matthews, and I was fishing a local marina with a mate of mine called Simon Meadows, and we were fishing all the methods, and it was starting to get rather hard, and live baits, lures, they were getting sort of quite sort of hard to catch. And Ed turned up that day and showed us this method with a silly little rod and some silly little lures, and he absolutely emptied the place. And for probably the next 6 months, maybe even a year, we had some incredible perch fishing. We had so many 3-pounders, it was untrue, lots of 2-pounders. We had them just short of 4 pound out this marina, and other places I had them to over a 4 and a brace of 4s. It was incredible fishing. The drop shot sort of virtually took over my angling life over the winter. But then it started to get difficult. And Simon said to me the one day, he said, I've started catching again, Des. What I've done is I've broken a bit of worm off and put a bit of worm on the hook with the lure. I said, all right. And I started doing it and started catching as well. Anyway, after a couple of weeks, I thought, you know, why am I just putting the lure on and a little bit of worm? I wonder if I put the whole worm on. Because when you put a worm on in the water, it doesn't look like a worm. When you put it on a drop shot method, it looks like a fish or a leech or whatever. Honest, it is, the attraction is unbelievable. The attraction is you've got the broken worm juices going into the swim. So I gave it a try, and to say the worm, and I named it Walking the Worm, to say it was devastating, and still to this day, it is the most devastating method. And if you struggle catching on lures at first, or you think, I'd like to give the drop shot a go, but I'm not very successful at the moment, and if you want to get a few tugs and a few takes and feel the pulls first off, some of the traditionalists might say it's wrong, but it isn't. Getting a few takes, learning the rods, learning the method, even on Walking the Worm is the way to go forward. And all you need to do is a standard. I don't use a standard knot on the drop shot. What I use is a spin shot, VMC spin shot hook, which has a swivel running through it, which makes it so it can spin right the way round. It doesn't tangle. And I like the normal knots on there. So you got that. Then down to a dropper. Standard. It's a standard drop shot setup. But this is the difference. Instead of a plastic lure, what you've got is my worms are going all over the place. There you go. What you've got, look, is a worm. This is a dendra. And all you do, put it down there like so. Round we go. There, look at that. And that's it on there. And when that goes in the water, that straightens out. That straightens out in the water. And man, does that attract the fish. So there you are. You cast that out. You cast that out. And then you bring in that back like so. But just imagine that when it's in the water, that is coming back. And it's just like a leech or a fish, whatever. And the attraction. You see, when you're fishing plastic or you're fishing rubber, when you go into a swim and you cast in, you cast in, you cast in, you might have a fish, you might have two fish, you might have nothing. You leave the swim and you've done nothing for the swim really. When you put this in, even if you don't catch anything, you put a load of flavour into the worm flavour into the swim. And the fish are looking round for this flavour. And then all of a sudden, when you come back, the amount of times I've come back to a swim is unbelievable. That's when it really works. You come back, and then all of a sudden, there you go. He nails it. That's Walking the Worm. It's a drop shot method, exactly the same lead, exactly the same hook. Personal preference is a spin shot for me. But instead of using rubber or plastic, just put a worm on, just like that. Exactly like that. And that is absolutely devastating. Move it nice and slow, like you use the drop shot, exactly the same as you use a drop shot. If you're successful at drop shotting, then this will take it up to another level. Unbelievable. There you go, Walking the Worm. I absolutely adore trout fishing, and I enjoy buzzer fishing for trout. And buzzer fishing can catch some of the most wary fish and some of the biggest fish. I've had double-figured fish on buzzers when it's been very, very difficult to catch on lures. The amount of, especially beginners that come into trout fishing, think that the bigger the lure, the brighter the lure, the quicker the lure, the quicker you fish it in, the more aggressive the big trout will come. Sometimes that's true, but very often a very subtle approach will catch some of the better fish. Now, a buzzer is an emerging buzzer coming from the bottom of the lake and then breaking through the surface film and then flying away as natural as you can get. Now, this one is an adaptation of the hair rig from carp fishing and bringing it into trout fishing. What we've done here is we've put a hair-rigged poly ball onto the buzzer. How about that, look? And what it does, it actually sits in the surface, that ball sits in the surface, and the buzzer sits underneath waiting to break the surface tension. Very often a buzzer hasn't almost got the strength to break the surface tension, so what he'll do, he'll come up and he'll be sat under the surface tension for a while, and that's when the trout really make the most of it, come in smashing into picking up those buzzers as they sit there almost waiting to be eaten. And there it is. And let me show you what it looks like when you cast it out. Look at that. You just cast it out, leave it, and it just looks as though that buzzer is sitting, a hair-rigged buzzer is sitting under the surface waiting to be eaten by a lovely big trout. This, to me, shows the advantage of being an all-rounder. I've actually brought the carp fishing into the trout fishing to help me out. We can all help one another one way or another, and this is one way that I've brought the hair rig, which is one of the most incredible inventions of all, into actually fishing a buzzer under the surface. There you go.